So you've made the great decision to start playing Malifaux, and we need to start talking about where are you going to start and what are you going to play. And we've got a few options for you. We're going to just go through some ideas and recommendations for how you might want to start your Malifaux journey. The first thing obviously you'll need is a fate deck. That is that beautiful set of cards that are used to work out your mechanics in place of dice. There's lots of different styles and options. You can pick one, it doesn't matter. Then it's time to start picking your models. Now, the first way that you can go, and if you want to get a fate deck included and some scheme markers that are made of cardboard, we would recommend looking at something like a starter box. Now, this is a low cost entry, ideal for a game called Henchman Hardcore. In this box, you'll get 4 models, a fate deck, some scheme markers, and then a measuring widget that'll be useful to you. You can also use our supporting channel Rampage Games, and we will help you out with all those tokens. A discount code for tokens will be in the link and description of today's video. Now, the more interesting part, and where I actually want to talk to you about, is you don't need to start with a starter box. In actual fact, what's more likely going to be is you're going to need a core box. And we do have alternative titles as well, but we're going to focus on the core box to start with. Now, in Malifaux, there is 8 key factions. Guild, Rezzers, Neverborn, Ten Thunders, Outcasts, Bayou, Arcanists, and Explorers. Last edition, late entry. And within each of those factions, there is 9 masters available to them. With each of those masters comes a slightly different playstyle, a slightly different theme. For example, if we were to look at Reva from the Rezzers, she is very much about setting things on fire and using burning markers and tokens to eviscerate her enemies. Really nice and straightforward. You then have something like Summer from the Bayou, who's known as a summoning master. And typically he summons small gremlins into the game to try and overwhelm you with force. Nice and easy. Asami from the Ten Thunders faction, a lovely model that has just had a rework at the time of filming this a couple of months ago, where she's now played slightly differently, but she now has access to something called hazardous markers, and these are where she will then try and teleport through them, make attacks through them. So there's a nice bit of putting out markers to attack your enemies at range or jump upon them from a distance. We then have one of my personal favourites as a starting box is the Victorias for the Outcast faction. This is a straight up and down, I'm going to kill you and you can't score off your dead sort of master. In this, it's a very different type of box to these other ones because there is actually 2 masters. They're both called Victoria. They used to be called Ashes and Blood, but now they're just Victorias. And in this box, obviously you get the standard sort of set of models, but instead of having a totem like you do in the other boxes, you get a second master. Very useful. Then we have another one of my personal favourites, Indiana Jones himself, Lucas McCabe. He is a treasure hunter and he has a load of models that allow him to get to relics. And these relics are upgrades that can be added to models to give additional effects in the game. Any of these and anything that you find interesting particularly will work for this. And you start off with a core box and it has a keyword. So for example, our treasure hunting Indiana Jones has the keyword wastrel. I would then look for any other box that has the keyword wastrel on it, and that would round out my crew. That would then give me all the models I want to hire potentially in a game. I can also, because this is Lucas McCabe, he is a Ten Thunders or an Explorer's Master, I can use him in either faction. I just have to declare my faction at the start of my event. So I can pick all the models for my keyword, and then I can add something else. It's called a versatile model. And versatile models are things like this Half-Bloods box here. This is one of my little favourite boxes for Neverborn currently, as it includes 5 models. It includes Maurice, Angel Eyes, Tuco, and some Blood Wretches. In this box, these are versatile models, so they basically can be hired by any Neverborn model, and it doesn't cost any extra. Typically, if I was across a couple of factions, so let's say, for example, I had Asami and Lucas, and I was declaring McCabe because I can take multiple masters to an event and declare it at the tabletop. I could hire some of the models from Asami in a McCabe crew, but it would cost me extra. There is a soulstone tax, something just to be aware of. Now, not only, and this is where it gets more interesting, and we like diversity in this channel, and we like having that ability. With McCabe, this is Lucas McCabe #1. He is the treasure hunter. Also, there's a title box, which includes 2 masters and an extra model. This allows you to play Lucas McCabe and each other master in a different way. This is important because you may find that when you get to the table, you declare McCabe, and then you can choose between each of the masters. To be clear, this isn't an essential purchase, but it is nice should you want to try a different style but keep the same core crew. It allows you some flexibility, and typically each master plays slightly differently. In this case, Lucas McCabe, the mounted one, he has 2 versions, the mounted and then dismounted version, and he is more about, I guess, getting out the upgrades and being a little bit better with it, whereas Lucas McCabe 2 is about debuffing and makes a lot more benefit of actually giving out auras that make it so that it's harder for them to be hit because of the aura of the artifacts. Both still hit quite hard, both still quite move, and the core crew doesn't really change much, but there is some differences. Same with our fellow McMorning here from the Rezzers faction. McMorning 1 that comes in the core box is very killy and straight up and down, whereas McMorning 2 is a lot more, I say interesting, I prefer it. He generates more corpses and he has a lot more sort of mini-game shenanigans, I think I'd call it. So, once you've made your crew choice, it's time to get building and playing. So, we're at the point we're ready to play. We've got our models, we're painted, and we have our model cards and our fate deck. The only thing left that we now need is some tokens to represent different abilities and things that are going on in the game. In our previous video, we talked about scheme markers. Obviously, if you buy a starter box, as we've said, you'll get some of these in there. But obviously, you can also get acrylic tokens from us at Rampage Games. Alongside that, you're going to need some corpse and scrap markers and probably some form of measuring sticks to make your life a little bit easier. Outside of that, you don't really need anything else. So this is a low buy and a low investment from that point of view. All I would then do when it comes to a game at the tabletop, I would use my app, say that I'm declaring Seamus, and then I would pick my crew. From this, I'd then grab the cards I need. I typically like to sleeve mine and use a dry white pen to track wounds and any conditions that models will have during the course of the game. This, however, can be done in the app, and all tracking can be done in the app, and it's a good way because we do regular erratas, typically every 6 months, for different models, and so you may not necessarily get the updated cards, especially if it's been recent, and obviously Wade have had the stock in their US distribution hub for quite a while, so please just be aware of that. The card you get in the box may not be the right card. You can order them direct from the US, but we are slowly moving towards where a lot of us just use the app now for the vast majority of things. So, starting crews that I would recommend to you as a new player for Malifaux, depending on your faction choices. And these ones are typically straight up and down killy ones, just so that you can get the core mechanics down. You can watch our intro video or our more detailed videos on the mechanics of Malifaux to get a better understanding and potentially make a different choice. In the Rezzers, I'm going to say my man Seamus. Seamus 1 particularly has a very big gun. It shoots, it kills, you're probably going to lose a model a turn as an opponent against it. Nice easy crew to master. For Guild, I'm really into Tull. He has a little bit of shenanigans to it. It's a low buy and there's only 3 boxes, which makes it a really straightforward purchase. If you want something that's been reworked recently and a bit of interesting, Lucius is another interesting keyword. Has lots of upgrades and switchy abouts. It does take a little bit more to get there. For Outcasts, I would recommend the Victorias, or I'd recommend Von Schill. Either work very well. Victoria's is a bit more of a melee killer. Von Schill is a bit more of a utilitarian with ranged killing and some really beefy models. He also has upgrades, like we were talking about with McCabe earlier, and that'll allow you to change on the fly a little bit, so it gives you a little bit more versatility. For Arcanists, we're going to recommend Rasputina. This is the Ice Princess, an Ice Queen, I guess. She is just a very versatile one. She makes terrain called ice pillars, and these are able to shoot through them as well as use them to teleport and things like that. So it's a really nice little mechanic if you want to stand back and sort of judge your enemy's positioning a little bit. For Neverborn, this is a difficult one. I think there's a lot of really good masters in Neverborn, but I think typically the go-to is Nekima. Nekima has two versions that play very differently, and they're just some really nice models. They're just basically demon things, nice and straightforward, quite like it. For Bayou, your easy pick is going to be Ophelia or the Clampets. Ophelia is a straight up and down shooter and has upgrades very similar to what we said with McCabe, on having different weapons and guns. The crew, as its Bayou, is quite squishy. The Clampets, on the other hand, I just really enjoy them. They're a really fun crew to play. They drop tide markers, which allow them to get bonuses to their defense. For 10 Thunders, your easy pick in this one is Misaki. Misaki has shadow markers that she puts out, and her models put them out as well, and she can disappear and reappear outside of a shadow marker like a teleporting ninja. Her crew is very fast and she hits really, really hard. For Explorers, the go-to for me is currently Jedza, I think, or Cooper. Cooper is very much like Seamus. He is a shooter and has lots of little dogs and minions to run around and help him. I personally think Jedza has a more long-term viability and therefore would be a better purchase. The models are stunning. So, I hope this has given you a nice little insight into the world of Malifaux and what you should potentially be doing as your first idea for it. Obviously, you can go over to our sister site, Rampage Games, that's rampage-games.com. You can pick up some of the stuff from us there. You can also follow us on YouTube and on the Naughty Corner Gaming podcast, where myself and Matt Lewin, aka Hot Takes and El Capitan, talk about Malifaux on basically an every other week basis, whether it be what we took to events, our happenings on the current GGs, which is the competitive states, or what we think of a master. It's nice and straightforward. So, until next time, see you later.